translation in my mind was, wow, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Each of us can do a lot of things, but what should you be doing?
I've coined a phrase years ago, just being myself is good enough to be great. And I share it with all of my clients.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking, Brian, that's the key. Serve, don't sell. Because if you can serve well, you're going to sell all day long.
Well, the top of the morning to you, and welcome to It's a Good Life. I often say I have a special guest today, but I don't know how to describe this one. Maybe extra special, Danny? I don't know what to say. How about superstar special? How about my girl?
I'll take that.
She is awesome, okay? Carla Harris has spoken at our peak experience and leadership this year. We've had 2,500 events in our career, and we've had presidents of companies, movie stars, all the major sports figures, the first man on the moon, the last man on the moon, and the guy who didn't get to the moon, and Jim Lovell. We have never had a response to a speaker like we've had to Carla Harris. And the reason is, not only because she's this fabulous woman with this incredible resume as a market maker in New York, like an incredible performer and Carnegie Hall, and has a big Carnegie Hall presentation coming up here in right the beginning of December. But she has so much applied wisdom and so much applied insight. And we've done great sessions with Carla, but then we've done Q&A sessions where she sat there in front of thousands of people and answered their questions. And it's the best Q&A sessions I've ever been a part of, because she has so much experience and so much wisdom, and she has been there and done that. Carla, I know it's always hard to live up to a big old, build-up like this, but I just want to say thank you. You've been a blessing to me and our clients this year, and I'm just so excited to bring you to our podcast audience and get you exposed to as many people as I can.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, and thank you for having me at your amazing events as well as on this podcast. It is a privilege and an honor, as I have said before.
Well, a lot of people write books. It's interesting to me. A lot of people write books on leadership specifically, and then I find out that when I meet the person, talk to the person, the good insight, good information, but they don't really lead many people. In Lead to Win, you have been a leader for decades, and you have great insight. It has helped me as a leader. It's helped me to step more into my role as a leader, but also in the dynamics of you make it clear that everyone's in leadership. And, we all know the commercials, like, you have potential, and you have potential, and you have potential, right? The Pinocchio nose. So people say that stuff. But I'd love you to kind of go back to your leadership journey, how you kind of ended up here, and then maybe how that could apply to the folks who are listening. So give them give them the Reader's Digest version of your history.
Absolutely. Well, I started my career on Wall Street in 1987, literally a couple months right before the crash happened, the big crash that people hadn't seen since 1929. And starting on Wall Street back in the late 80s, everything that you read about in terms of those 100 hours per week were fact and not fiction. So it was a case where people really were not focused on leadership, if you will, in financial services. They were focused more on who had the biggest bravado, the biggest ego, who could make somebody melt down or cry on the trading floor, or those kinds of things. So it wasn't like you saw real examples of great leadership, and it was known. It was frankly, one of Wall Street's reputations that it was a tough place. But yet, everybody liked to say that our assets go up and down on the elevator every night. It's all about people. So it's interesting that in my early days, while I was grinding those hours out, I didn't see that many examples of people that I wanted to be like. Yes, I aspired to be successful. Yes, I aspired to get those titles, but I didn't necessarily want to behave like that, nor did I feel like that was the way to get people to really want to follow you and give you their very best. And along the way, I would say my first 10 years of my career, I had 2 or 3 really good leaders in that I actually learned from. I was like a sponge. There was one guy who I mentioned in my book that I realized this important pearl around collaboration and being inclusive. Now, remember, Brian, we weren't using the word inclusivity back then. Right. This was the early 90s. But yet, one of the things I learned from him is that he already knew what he wanted to accomplish in a group meeting, for example, but he would engage everybody and have them put their fingerprints on the blueprint. So by the time the meeting was over, everybody thought it was their idea. Every person thought it was their idea, when I knew that that's what he wanted to have happen anyway, because I was his operations officer. He had already told me what he was hoping would come out of this meeting, and voila, he made it happen. And everybody felt like they owned it and had something to, they had something at stake if the thing didn't work, or it was part of their issue or fault if the thing, didn't work. So I learned watching more closely those people that I wanted to really be like, or that they had something that I wanted to add into my tool chest. Another one, I happened to meet Dr. Janetta Cole, who used to be the president of Spelman College, and former President Bill Clinton around the same time. And both of them, upon meeting, made me feel like I was the only person in the room. So no matter how you feel about these individuals, I am telling you that that moment was special to me. And I remember thinking, I want to do that. I want to be able to do that as a leader. Make people feel seen, make them feel like they're so important that they're the only person in the room, in a room of 2,000 people, for example. And so really focusing on people who had skills like that, those are some of the things that really informed my own leadership journey and my style. Last one I'll give you is, and this was a big one, and I talk about this, and I talked about this at your conferences. My former chairman, my immediate past chairman and CEO, James Gorman at Morgan Stanley, I heard him say one day that he focuses on only those things that the CEO can do. If there's anything else on his list that anybody on the team can do, it shouldn't be on his list, because he should be squarely focused on only those things that the CEO can do. Translation in my mind was, wow, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Each of us can do a lot of things, but what should you be doing? And that really helped me. That helped free me up of being that girl who would just take on everything. Because if you do, you can't be that kind of leader that's required today.
Well, you talk about in the book how going from an individual contributor to a leader is probably one of the toughest transitions. And I had this in my first career as a real estate agent, where I had an assistant, and it was like Goose and Maverick, and I'm in there, I'm in the plane, I'm making the sales, I'm generating the leads, I'm getting all the referrals, I'm the guy. And now I start building out a team, and of course the frustration is nobody can do it like me, right? My mother's lament, oh, God bless her, she'd say, just once, I'd love to have a meal handed to me. Let me tell you, no one ever did hand a meal to your mother because you couldn't, right? And so the truth is, she never wanted a meal handed to her. She wanted to be that person providing it. How do you go from being the main person to being the main leader, and ultimately having to trust and train people to do what you do, and sometimes watch them make the mistakes or not do it as well, those kinds of things? How do you make that transition?
Yeah, it requires a huge mind shift, Brian. That's why I made it the first chapter in the book, because many people get that tap to become the leader when it's a crisis. And now all of a sudden you've been jamming as that individual contributor, that best one, but now you're it. So I point out the fact that you have to consciously make a mind shift and say, I'm not the person that gets it done. I'm the person that enables everybody else to do it, and to do it well. And that's the thing you have to tell yourself every day until you get it, right? So no, don't get down there and do it. Does that person have the resources? Do they have the training? Do they have what they need in order to be successful? You are the ultimate enabler at the end of the day. Oh, by the way, and the buck stops with you. And you need to understand that. And you need to make sure your team knows that you own it. And therefore, you have no intentions of failing. So therefore, they can't fail. Yeah. But I think it's an active mind shift. It will not just happen if you don't actively practice at it every single day. The thing that I write about a little bit in chapter 2 is that I tell people, now you got to figure out who your real stakeholders are. They aren't the same people. When you're an individual contributor, you have one boss. But now when you're it, if it's a public company, you got the shareholders, you have the board, you have the employees, you have your executive leadership team. You have far more stakeholders now. So if you can shift yourself to the fact that you have a lot more stakeholders and start focusing on how you serve each of them, then that'll help you make that shift a little faster.
If I was in, you had a ton of people working for you, Morgan Stanley, giant company. If I was to interview your staff, what do you think they, honestly, just, in the third party, what do you think how they would have described you and your leadership style?
Yeah, I think they would say that I was inclusive, that I'm transparent, that I'm a coach, I'm a big attaboy, attagirl, that I own it if I make a mistake. I live the buck stops with me, and I would say that to my team all the time. I own all of this, and it's not me, and I have no interest in failing, so we can't fail. Right. And I would say those kinds of things. I believe, Brian, in being transparent about who you are as a leader so that your people know what they can trust. Right. If you say, this is how I like to communicate, I'm straight, no chaser. You're never going to have to. And this is part of my speech. I would say to somebody who's just coming to work for me, you're never going to have to wonder where you are with me, because I'm going to tell you immediately. If that was a great job, I'm going to say, wow, you killed it. Or if it wasn't, I'm going to say, that wasn't so good. Let me tell you why. And let's see what I can do to help you. And if your behavior is consistent with how you have defined who you are as a leader, then people will embrace it that much faster.
Well, you and Beverly could be sisters, right? You guys think the same, act the same. My Olympic-powered wife, and again, for her, like she's overcome the obstacles, and in our home, and we know this, we never really made a big deal of race, and we just we took it on. It's life, it's people, it's love. To make the Olympic team, there had only been ever one African American girl on the U.S. Olympic volleyball team, and she was 6'11". Right, so it's kind of, when you're 6'11", it's kind of hard not to pick that gal. And her name was Floheim, and she was an amazing player. Well, Beverly was 5'8" and undersized for an outside hitter, and she became this just amazing player. Not only All-American, but all Pan Am games and the Coaches Award. Multiple years in a row, and all the way to the Seoul, Korea Olympics. At the time, it wasn't, and again, I'll say this, and again, I'll probably take criticism for this. I don't believe it was a prejudice thing. It was just coaches were used to players. They're Hawaii, they're California, they're blonde, blue-eyed. This is how they do it. So they didn't see, when a coach sees somebody, they go, oh, you remind me of. Like as an owner of a business, I have hundreds of employees, and someone will come along and say, oh, they remind me of. So Beverly didn't remind anybody of anybody. Mm-hmm. And you, in 1987, with, Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, greed is good, hair slicked back, everybody's picture in front of the the gold Rolls Royce, greed is good. And here comes turns out this gospel singing black gal shows up. How did you grow through that? Because you were alone. Mm-hmm. You were on your own in definitely a man's world, where they weren't looking for anybody else to join who didn't look and sound like them.
Yeah.
How did you steel yourself in that regard?
I'll tell you, Brian, you know that my faith is, front and center for me. And I say, but for the grace of God, I would not be sitting where I'm sitting today. And part of that grace was also not letting me focus on what wasn't happening or what somebody else must be thinking. And I look back now, because I have a pretty good memory. I look back now and I could hear certain things that people said. I could remember things now that's coming to me now, right? But that at the moment, it was going right over my head. And I can remember, I'll give you one example. And to this day, I thank the good Lord that I didn't get it. There was this guy who was a very senior guy in HR. And I had been working with him. He had been seeing me, do a great job at the thing that we were working on together. And I think he came to like me. And I really, in my heart, think that he thought he was doing me a favor. He pulled me in a conference room and he said, I just want to tell you, you work so hard, you try so hard, they are never going to promote you to managing director. And I said, really? Really? No matter what I do, no matter what the clients say about me, no matter how good I do on the deal. And I think at that moment he realized, oh shoot, I probably shouldn't have told her that. And he said, just forget it. Just forget what I said. Just, go back to your desk and do your work. Just go ahead. And I said, okay. And I walked out. Now, to this day, I'm grateful that it didn't land, right? Because he told me, oh, just forget it. I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't know what I'm saying. Just go back. Just keep doing a good job. I let it go and I kept rolling. But if I had stopped to think, he's a senior guy in HR. He must know something that I don't know. He's trying to tell me something. Maybe I should, if I had processed that, what I'm telling you now, then I might have walked away.
Right.
But he said, go back to your desk, and I did. And that was that.
The other thing is, I think in this case, we all have well-meaning relatives and well-meaning friends. He was well-meaning. I believe he was well-meaning because he actually shared it with you. The guy that's the bigot is the guy that never tells you, right?
Right.
Or does tell you in no uncertain terms. The thing is, we're all surrounded by well-meaning people.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. Our company's gone through a major remodel here the last 6 months. And, the industry's gone a certain way. We found ourselves kind of in a post-COVID era where the market ran away, and we ran away with it, just trying to keep up with it, you know? So to get back to the fundamentals, I've done a complete remodel in the company. And I'm going to tell you that I've had consultants, board members, all kinds of people who've given me really well-meaning advice. And I can honestly tell you, Carla, I have never gone against so much well-meaning advice where I've done the exact opposite. And the reason being is that I'm an entrepreneur who knows how to build a company, and I know in my gut what I need to do. But I've been surrounded by so many well-meaning people, and we all face this, and it's tough, right? It's just tough, and I think so many people, again, it doesn't mean that stuff doesn't land or you don't think about it, but I just think you got to really be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Continue to take in the information and the relationships and connect with the people who can pull you to the next level, coaches and mentors and those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, I would rather fail pursuing what's in my own gut.
Yeah. Well,
than conform to the mediocrity that's all around me on every hand's turn.
Yep.
And it just takes a lot. And what were some of the things you used to do in order to keep your mind right? Were you just so focused on the goal and doing the job? Where did that drive come from?
Well, I'll tell you, I was focused on my spirituality. By that point, that particular example, my faith had grown a lot. And I was really clear on who I was. And I had learned to really rely on that. So that was number one. Number two, I've always been goal-driven. Ever since I was a little girl, and my parents would tell me, you're supposed to make A's. There's nothing special about you making A's. That's what you're supposed to do. And I thought that was I was supposed to do. My paternal grandmother, who was an entrepreneur, first female entrepreneur, one of the most successful to this day that I knew, she would always say, baby, whatever you be good at it. So for me, that if you're going to bother to do anything, deliver excellence. And like I say to young people today, sometimes your best isn't good enough, but you will always have the personal satisfaction of knowing you left it on the floor. So I tried to approach everything with, I left it on the floor. Maybe they will say this, that, and the other about it, but I know it was my very best. And that's all you can do is your best. So those are the kinds of things between the scripture, that belief, the support of my parents and my grandparents who were like, oh yeah, girl, you could do this. Those things all kind of melded together, and I just kept going. And I would say, I'm going to keep rolling, giving my best until otherwise notified. And that also kept me, Brian, from being distracted if there was a rumor about a layoff or this was happening. I didn't kind of stop. I didn't get paralyzed. I didn't try to think, oh, let me, get myself under the desk so they won't see me. I was like, no, keep your head up so at least you can see the bullet coming. But, keep your head up and roll, right? And that's the way I go.
That's so good. That's so good. I'll tell you a neat story that I heard today. So we had our all servant leader meeting today with our staff, and one of our coaches shared a story. So she had a client who set a goal to do X amount of production this year. And however she entered her numbers into our system, we have a contact management system, she entered in the numbers wrong somehow. And so they just did their third quarter analysis. And so based on somebody's goals in our system, if you say, okay, I want to make this kind of money, I want to do this many sales, it spits out basically the activities you need to do based on your average sales price, based on your database. Here's what you need to do every day. So she accidentally entered in the number 25% higher than what she thought her goal was. And so now she's just head and rear down. She's doing the activities every day. The coach is checking in with her. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? And they just did their third quarter analysis. She is going to finish the year 35% ahead of her goal and didn't know it. And she kept going, what's going on? What's going on? And it's like, no, you're doing the activities, and you set the activities 30% higher than you thought you could. And it turns out you were well able for it because you're supposed to make A's.
Yeah.
You're supposed to do this.
That's exactly
You
right.
know, one thing I love a part of your story is, you know, so here you are, you're trying to make it your way, you're Morgan Stanley, you're on Wall Street, you're a market maker, and you had this immense talent and gift that you didn't share with anybody. So here you have this amazing voice, gospel singer, but you kind of hid it from people.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk about that and what it meant when you finally leaned into kind of the whole version of who you are.
Oh, yeah. So I'll tell you that when we first started on the street in '87, and I was in M&A, which was the reputed toughest area to be in investment banking at the time, people would say, you can't do anything. You can't have any outside activities. You can't let them know that you do anything else because they'll think you're not taking this seriously. They'll forget you have a beeper. You can't go here. You can't go there. But singing had always been a part of my life since I was 9 years old. So I just didn't make a big deal out of the fact that I could sing. And I literally would sneak out on Wednesday nights to go up to Harlem to see the, Apollo Amateur Night. And I would come back and I'd be there, if it took it all night long on a Wednesday at church, I would start singing, but I would never say anything. And little by little, I started, maybe singing a little bit here or a little bit there. And somebody would say, oh, you can sing. Well, fast forward about four or 5 years into it, I'm on the trading floor, and there was this guy who had one of those big, gruff, he never smiled on the floor kind of reputations. Everybody was afraid of him. And, like I said, I'm negatively motivated. You tell me I can't do something, I'm all over it. And I love birthdays, Brian. I love birthdays. So, and I like to sing happy birthday to people. So I said, I'm going to sing happy birthday to so-and-so. And they were like, oh, girl, don't you do that. That is sudden death. Don't you do that. I said, what the heck is his birthday? And they were like, I wouldn't do that if I... So I walked over to his desk on the sales and trading floor. And this guy was always like, never smiled. And I said, I hear it's your birthday. And he looked up at me like, get the blank out of my face. And I said, well, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. And I kept singing, and he's looking at me like this. But when I got to the happy birthday, dear da 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 da, he was big smile on his face, and everybody was like, what? And from that day on, every time he saw me and I spoke to him, he would smile and he would speak back. But until then, I've been on the trading floor about a year and change. The guy didn't even grunt my way. So.
And tell the folks a little bit about that singing career of yours.
Yeah, I started singing when I was 9, and I'm cradle Catholic since 3 months old. But I lived in a Black community where everybody else was Baptist or Pentecostal or AME. And I had friends like me who liked to sing, and we'd be on the sidewalk singing. And then I went to their church a couple of times, and they sang in the junior choir, and they didn't start till 11. So I realized, wait, I could go to Mass from 9:30 to 10:30 and then head over there to the Baptist church. So literally, Brian, from 8th grade to 12th grade till I left Jacksonville, I sang with them. And that is how I fell in love with gospel music, because, the music in most Catholic churches are more, more traditional. But that's where I learned to sing gospel. And that's when I learned really the power of that kind of music, how it could really move your soul. And I believe that I credit that with expanding my faith even more. It wasn't just the preaching in the gospel church, but it was the singing, the power of the singing, the emotion of the singing, how it would move people. And from that day to this one, I've been singing gospel. So, when I cut my first album, I love Christmas music, which is why it was Christmas. But everything else from there has been, gospel or contemporary gospel, traditional gospel like A Precious Lord, or, I'm trying to think of one of the other traditional songs, Because He Lives, those kinds of traditional, gospel songs that I did. Or I'm
Great.
Jesus.
And how many times have you done Carnegie Hall?
I have done 6 times, sold out. And on December 1st, we will be doing number 7. And it is also the 20th anniversary of the first time I stepped on that stage, because I stepped on that stage November 21, 2005.
Yeah. I just think it's such a great story on so many levels, but also the fact that many of us hide our talent in the ground.
Yeah.
And to conform to what other people think is acceptable. And I've coined a phrase years ago, just being myself is good enough to be great. And I share it with all of my clients. It's just being yourself is good enough to be great.
Yeah.
And, God made you a certain way. And again, you and I are both people of faith. It's the source, it's the core, it's where it steadies the ship. Like I say, in times like this, when I'm in a world that the industry's rocked and, all those kinds of things, I just have a great calmness and peace. And that's why, candidly, I want to give credit where credit's due. All the decisions I'm making, like our company's having, like we've had the best August, September, and October we've had since 2019. And I've done everything contrary to all the consultants and all the conventional wisdom. But it's what are the principles? What are your experience? What do you know? I have great people, fantastic customers, and here's what I believe in. And I'm willing to go down on that. I'm not, that's the hill I'm willing to fight on. And doing what I believe in, working by referral, building relationships, and connecting with people, and that's the hill I'm willing to die on. And thankfully the Lord's not asked me to die on any of the hills, But I think for a lot of folks, that's really the key. One of the things you talk about is you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
And I'm in the coaching business. How have you utilized other people's wisdom, other people's insights, coaches, mentors, advisors, books? How have you utilized all that to become who you are today?
Yeah, I will tell you that a lot of my speaking has come from listening to other speakers. I said to a young man recently that one of my big superpowers I realize now is that I'm a great listener. And I also think that makes you a great salesperson. And this is somebody who has failed, for the last 7 or 8 years in trying to be a salesperson, but he is so busy talking and he is so busy trying to present that he doesn't figure out what the client really needs. And I think that being a good listener helped to inform how, I speak. And I ultimately, like you, came to the conclusion that, you can give me a few tips here and there, but at the end of the day, I'm going to speak the way I want to be spoken to. And I'm going to try to think about what the audience really cares about. The most important thing that I do, as you know I did with you all, is I said, tell me about the audience. Who are they? What are they struggling with? I often ask that question when I'm speaking in a corporate environment. What are they struggling with? What are you struggling with as the leadership trying to communicate to your people that you don't think is landing? Let me figure out how I either say it differently or amplify it for you, right? So, and I think all of that has come because I've never taken a public speaking class. All of that has come from listening and thinking about how to serve. And it was the same thing as a Wall Street banker. There's certain things they used to tell you need to do. We're famous for putting together the big, thick books. But the first time I had a chance to go into a client by myself, I had done the big, thick book, but I said, I got the Morgan Stanley book because we got to show up and show you how smart we are.
Yeah.
But if you're only giving me 45 minutes a day and it's just you and me, I really want to figure out what we can talk about where you feel like this was the best 45 minutes that you spent today. How can I take this huge, very valuable platform that I'm sitting on and serve you? And that ended up being such an impactful conversation because the client knew that I was listening. He told me a lot of things that I never heard him say when I was in a meeting with my colleagues that I was able to take back and we were able to leverage.
The biggest transactions I ever did in my career, I had all the presentations or whatever else. I went in with a yellow pad and a pen and asked a lot of questions. And as you know, one of the things we've done to actually turn our business around is we started leading with value and giving free. We have a little free training program we built. We have free events we do with our Buffini Coaching Live, which I'm going to be talking to you about. Coming and joining us. And then also we do this free business consultation. And we just basically sit down and say, hey, give us 30 minutes, and we're going to make it the best 30 minutes in your business this year. And it's like, what's your vision? What's holding you back? What are others doing in your area? And then what some next steps are. People have been taking these in droves. We've had an unbelievable response. And what's happened is 6 months later, 9 months later, however long later, they go, what else do you have? And we've given this value, and then they're like, you're the source of this. It really helped me. And now I want to do business with you. And so by serving and giving, our businesses exploded on all fronts. You know?
Absolutely. And I'm thinking, Brian, that's the key. Serve, don't sell. Because if you can serve well, you're going to sell all day long.
Yes, yes. Well, you can talk all day long because you are the greatest, and we can talk all day long because we're pals. But I will say this, Carla. I've had Derek interview you a few times and ask you some questions. There's a few questions I want to ask you, and we've asked everybody in this podcast, whether it's, like I say, the first man on the moon to the Magic Johnson, whoever else we've had, thousands of guests. And so I have 5 kind of rapid fire questions I ask everybody, and it just gives us a little different flavor.
Okay.
And because I will give $1 million to the person who ever can stump Carla Harris with a question. That will be the first time ever. So here's the first one. What's the single best piece of advice you've ever been given?
On Wall Street, that has been frequently wrong, but never in doubt. And that was another senior woman said to me, your problem is you're too quick to say if you don't know something. And you can't do that in this business. People pay us millions of dollars for our judgment. You can't look at a client and say, I don't know. Just do it like the boys do. Frequently wrong, but never in doubt. And at first, I kid you not, that was the quote. And I was clutching my pearls. I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't give an answer when I don't know what I'm talking about. But I understood what she meant. And I thought the underlying message was, if you're going to give forth an answer, give it with confidence, right? And so I couldn't say what I didn't know. That wasn't authentic to Carla Harris. So the way I interpreted that is I started saying, if somebody asks me a question, I say, I believe the answer is X, but give me a few minutes. Let me check it out. And I would go figure out what the right answer was. And even when I came back with a different answer, nobody cared as long as I closed the loop.
And it was confidently done. When I'm teaching the young folks and the new agents, I tell them, I may not have all the answers, but I'll get you all the answers, and I'll get them quick, and I'll get them right. What's a one talent or gift you wish you possessed that you currently don't? I ask everybody that, and they all want to sing on stage. Everybody I talk to, every famous author you can imagine, they all say, I want to sing on stage. Well, that's no good for you because you already got that. So I'm curious what your answer is going to be.
Yes.
What's the one talent or gift you wish you had that you don't?
I'd like to be such a great golfer that I had a single-digit handicap.
Let's go. I can help you with that, Carla. That's awesome. So you like to play?
I like to play, but I played terribly.
Hey, well, we can help you with that. We definitely can help you with that. And Beverly just got 2 new knees, so she's coming back. So in the new year, when you're freezing your took us off in New Jersey, we'll get you and the fam out to California here and play golf at La Costa.
All right.
All right. What's the book that's been most instrumental in your life?
Oh, the Bible. That's easy. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to let you off easy then. What's the character in the Bible that you most identify with?
Oh, wow. I'm going to say it's Peter.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's Peter or Rachel. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. That's great. That kind of tells me everything right there. For those of you who don't study the Bible, check out Peter and check out Rachel. There's some great stuff in there. Okay, Carla, I know you don't have a ton of time for watching movies. You're a busy woman, got a wonderful family. But if there's one movie you stop, every time it's on, you stop to watch it, what would that one movie be?
Sparkle and The Godfather.
Really?
Yeah. Sparkle and The Godfather equally. I love The Godfather.
Yeah. Now, I think I just profiled you here with Peter and Rachel and Sparkle and The Godfather. Nobody has ever put those two together, ever. In both those answers, I've never heard, in all my years, I've never heard. There it is. See, she sparkles and she's sweet like Rachel, but she's the Godfather who'll cut off your ear like Peter. She was made for Wall Street, this girl. So good. So good. Last but not least, Carla, thanks for taking the time today. What does a good life mean to Carla Harris?
A good life means being kind and thinking about others first and putting yourself and all your gifts in a place where they can be leveraged by other people, whether it's your family, people you will never see, or people that you're working with.
Well, her name is Carla Harris. She is the real deal. She's a fabulous woman. The book is called Lead to Win, and it's a terrific, terrific book. It is written from a point of experience. She has lived this. She has done this. I'm so proud of our association putting you on stage and having countless questions answered, and people are just sitting there and they're mesmerized because everything rings true. Oh, she did this. She faced this. She had this difficult conversation. She had this challenge with an employee. She had this challenge with a customer. And it's written from experience, which is rarer every day that goes by. There's lots of books. There's lots of content out there now. Everybody's an influencer. But you're a woman of substance who has influence. And we are just
Thank you, sir.
Thrilled to have you on today. And you've been such a joy to have. And we got plans, Carla, because you are dynamite with so much great information. And we have a few more events we are going to come knocking on your door for if we can manage to fit into your schedule. Good luck at Carnegie Hall December 1st. That's going to be spectacular.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for being here today. I told you about my mom when we met. And my mom passed away in March. And at the end of every podcast, we played her Irish blessing. Okay. And so when she passed, I decided I didn't want to play her speaking from the grave. So I do a little honor in her name every day. I do the Irish blessing. In fact, we just opened up. We have a giant conference room called the Brian Buffini Executive Boardroom. And it's gorgeous and decorated and has her picture and all her quotes on the wall. And we just finished that here this week. So we honor her. So I'm going to leave us today with her little Irish blessing. It's a blessing over you and our whole audience. So may the roads rise up to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the rain fall soft upon your fields and the sun shine warm upon your face. And until we meet again, may God hold us all in the hollow of his hand. We'll see you next time.
Amen.